Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video, I will be discussing, more like gushing to be honest, Ship of Destiny, the third book in the Live Ship Traders trilogy by Robin Hobb. Now, I have made no secret of how much I love Robin Hobb, and I have thoroughly enjoyed every book of hers that I have read. I loved the Farseer trilogy. The last two books were 5 stars for me, and I was reading this one, and the first two books I really enjoyed. They were very good. There was just a ton of build-up. There were some slower parts. I wasn't connecting all the way with all of the characters. They were still so good that they were still 4-star ratings, but I was looking for that just something extra that I feel like I got out of Farseer and had not been getting from Live Ship, even though I was having a great time. And man, did I get that with Ship of Destiny. I absolutely loved this book. From the moment I started it, it was really difficult to put down. Despite also being a 900-page book, I got through this so quickly. It actually really helped my TBR because I read this way quicker than I had allotted time for. And I enjoyed it so much. We go from where you left off in the second book, and you're just going the entire time. There is very little slow time or downtime at all. And we're at kind of the point where we really know the characters. We can really see the growth. It didn't, for the most part, matter whose POV I was reading. I was heavily invested. And a lot of the characters you get to see different sides of. And you definitely do get some of those classic Robin Hobb gut punches as well. Because it wouldn't be a Robin Hobb book without it. But man, I enjoyed it so much. I love this book, and I knew it was going to be 5 stars from barely starting it. I could tell, and it continued through that for me. There was just a lot that happened, and a lot of this book too that really sets up for the later series and makes me so excited to read them because there's a lot going down here. This is the point too. I commented when I first started Live Ship that I'd heard that there were some spoilers for Farseer. There was definitely some of that in book 2, but there's a ton here in this third book that directly correlates to Farseer, that ties it in small ways, or just changes the way you see certain events of Farseer. So I would certainly recommend that you read Farseer all the way through, complete Assassin's Quest before reading this if you want to get the best experience. Because not only will it potentially maybe spoil some things from Farseer, but you won't appreciate some of the things that are going on if you haven't read it. I know a lot of people like this series more. Honestly, I'm still Farseer. I like more than Live Ship, even though this was fantastic. This is, in a lot of ways, I feel like easier to read because it's the third person, multiple POVs. But there's just, even though I really enjoyed this, I don't know, something about Farseer still really sticks for me. But I have never been more excited to keep reading Realm of the Elderlings, and I'm going to have to figure out when I'm going to do it because I have a lot of other books to read. But I didn't think I could fall so in love with a series and with an author like this, other than, like, you know, with some of my other favorites that I've been reading for a long time, like when I first started reading Wheel of Time or a lot of, you know, Brandon Sanderson's works. There have been other authors that I've started reading where I'm like, I really like this writing, and I definitely want to keep reading. But Robin Hobb, from the start of the second book of hers that I read, I was sold. Assassin's Apprentice didn't quite sell me. I enjoyed it, but Royal Assassin and on, I was so pulled in, and I just absolutely loving it. So, Ship of Destiny, and once again, this is the third book in Live Ship Traders. So I'll talk about before I chat spoilers, because I will do a little bit of spoilers later, just to talk about some things. But there are going to be spoilers for Mad Ship and Ship of Magic books 2 and 1, respectively, since I said it that way for some reason. There will be some spoilers there to talk about what's happening here, because this, like I said, really goes. If you haven't read the first 2 books, do not watch this review. You can go watch my reviews for the first 2 books. I'll link those, but don't watch this one because the series is awesome, and I don't want to spoil it for you there. So I'm going to be talking just about general what happens with Ship of Destiny, spoiler-free for now, but there will be spoilers for the previous books. Okay. So, the big thing we had with Mad Ship ending was the freaking dragon. We actually get POVs from Tintalia, the dragon, as well, which was really cool. And with that whole thing, we found out in book 2 with the sea serpents actually being dragons. That was I mentioned that my last review was spoiler free, so I couldn't say it in that one. But that really changed the whole sea serpents, made it a lot more enjoyable to read them. Getting a POV from a dragon was pretty cool, and we really just get going. And so we have several different plot lines still going on, but a lot of things starting to interconnect. We ended with Malta trying to survive the Rain River with the satrap and his companion. We had Wintro and Kennit and Etta all still on Vivacia and going about still trying to realize Kennit's goals of being the Pirate King. We had Althea and Brashen on Paragon with Amber and them going and trying to rescue the Vivacia. And those are kind of our really big plot lines all going on, as well as the dragon and the sea serpents have their own agenda of things that they want to happen as well. But man, some of the things that just happened here were fantastic. There was even one particular scene that I'd heard about that something was going to happen, and it wasn't like a massive spoiler. It was still really good, and it was talked about before. It seemed like it was likely to. But really seeing everything come together, all of these different characters have to interact, and Hobb found a way to get characters to all be interacting that I just wouldn't have thought possible. The way it all happened, it was so well done, finally getting to see different people meet that hadn't up to that point. And man, I tell you what, I already liked Paragon a lot, but Paragon, I felt so bad for Paragon, and Paragon for sure just kind of solidified himself as one of my favorite characters. The stuff that goes on with Paragon and the kind of the full reveal of what happened to Paragon was something I'd very much been waiting for. So we get a lot more information on Paragon's past. And it was Paragon and Kennit were the characters we didn't know a ton about. We do get a lot more with Kennit as well. And then with the other characters, like the Veshrits specifically, we know their past for the most part, and we were living through them going through their main adventures as well. But we get a ton more character development. Malta specifically, I absolutely hated in the first book. I didn't hate her by the end of book 2, and I was really actually pleased with the way that her character developed. It was something that felt very natural, and it did take some time, but I thought the way she developed as, her and Wintro were both kind of coming out of adolescence and growing up learning to be, men and women and adults. And so with her, Wintro went a very different direction, but we get a lot of character development with him as well. We saw him just kind of following Kennit kind of blindly and seeing more there. We had moments with Etta too, where we see Etta's not necessarily as blind, following as we thought from previous parts, but we just get all of these different people growing up so much. We do get Althea too, who started off very rash and is learning. We had Brashen learning to be a man. We even, believe it or not, we even get some character development for the satrap. And I was talking over in Megan's Reading Revelation Discord with her and some others, and we were all just complaining about the satrap. Because I don't like the satrap either. I hated him very, very quickly. And previously I had said Kennit was one of my favorite characters to read. And Kennit, don't get me wrong, is still a great character to read. Horrible person. And it's like the more you learn about Kennit, the more terrible stuff there is. There are some reasons that we find out for why he is the way that he is. Definitely doesn't excuse it, but it's just the weaving of the story for so many of these characters and learning more about them. And the kind of the glimpses, the almost like, I don't want to say foreshadowing because I don't know if we're going to see a lot of these characters again, but it gives you a sense of how things are going to go, and we get to see how things may be affected after the events of Live Ship, which is something I really enjoyed too. We got a little bit of that at the end of the Farseer trilogy with Assassin's Quest, kind of talking about things that happened a little bit later and explaining some things because we jumped to Fitz being older at the end of that book. And it makes me wonder exactly what the timeline is, because Life Ship does take place after the Red Ship War. It does take place after Assassin's Quest for sure. It starts after Assassin's Quest, but we don't know like how long is really passed. So it'll be interesting. Like I said, I really just want to keep reading and get to the next books. But the character development just was really fantastic. And like I said, Pretty much every single character I was reading, it didn't matter who, I was heavily invested. The one exception, the one character I was super disappointed in was Cirilla, who was the satrap's companion who went through some horrible stuff in book 2 and then was trying to basically escape to Bingtown and then kind of like trying to vie for power and make a life for herself. And the way she was set up, it seemed like she was going to be a lot more important, B, a lot more like capable, and I just kind of felt like her character felt a little bit wasted to me. I didn't really like the way that her character ended up developing. Some of it, I don't know, maybe it was natural. I don't think it totally didn't make sense, but I just felt like that was the one kind of sore spot. There was, I can't remember his name now, but the one like slave priest in book 2 was the character that I just kind of felt like didn't go anywhere either. And it was this book, it was Cirilla for me. I think that's just something Hobb does to an extent where, you know, not every single person, even if they're part of the story, is necessarily going to be important if you're looking at it in real life. Like, not everybody you meet necessarily is going to play a role in the overall story of your life. And so I don't necessarily have a problem with that. I feel like in a way it's more realistic, but you can't help when you're reading a novel to be like, well, I wish that would have gone somewhere. And so that was kind of the one exception for character that I didn't really like where that went. But there was so much, and all the other characters go through quite a lot of stuff and a lot of trauma. There was some in book 2, but there's a really particularly dark scene in book 3, and it was hard to read, and it did serve a purpose to the plot, but it was a rough scene, and Hobb does not pull her punches, like I said, with the things that you read and with the emotions of the different characters and kind of the backstory, and it's just very much the book. Even when there's hope, her books always kind of read as a tragedy. This one actually had a little bit more hope in it and brightness than I really expected, especially with the very, very bittersweet ending of Assassin's Quest. There was so much. Some things did kind of work out, but so much of it still felt like it didn't. And you get some of that, but there was a little bit of brightness. It wasn't quite as bleak, I felt, as the Farseer trilogy was. So that's probably a good thing. But I loved the way Farseer did wrap up as well. But so you do get that with kind of just weaving into that ending with seeing all the characters, everything kind of happen out. And it did feel very, very complete. Like I said, it kind of shows what could maybe happen and kind of hints at things like how things are probably going to go if we don't end up back seeing Bingtown or Jamila City, which I don't know if that's the right way to say that, but it's neither here nor there. But we get a lot of that with the wrap-up. Just, it was a very good ending. I was very satisfied with the ending, and just this book was fantastic. So, talking a little bit of spoilers, because there are some specific things that I do want to talk about a little bit more that happen in this book, or that this book seems to set up for. So at this point, I am going to talk spoilers. I will put a timestamp in the description down below of where you can skip to once I'm done with spoilers, and just kind of summarizing and ending up the video there, so you can definitely skip there. If you don't want spoilers, go click that now and skip past this section, because I do not, like I said, want to spoil anything, because it's such a good book. Such a good series, such a good author, just completely. So, a few things, and these are kind of in no particular order, but one thing that also does, like I said, it's one of the bigger correlations to Farseer, is we do get the scene, which had been talked about, we kind of figured was happening, where Amber kind of recarves Paragon in order to give him back his sight, and she ends up basically completely recarving him into an image of Fitz, and I don't know, it was a nice moment. I'm like, oh, and then we just kind of see that, and all of the comments and the little things about like, well, what's wrong with his nose, because he had a broken nose before, and hearing about the hair and the warrior tail and just everything, and it was a really nice scene. I feel like we needed a happy scene with Paragon, because we had some darker scenes with Paragon as well, because man, that was I didn't think I'd have such a gut punch from the ship, but hearing the full story, which it starts to be breadcrumbed, revealed little bits, with Paragon having been Igrot, the pirate, the old pirate who wanted to be Pirate King, his ship, and with Kenneth actually being a Ludluck, part of the family that originally owned the ship, and being basically held captive as a boy and like beaten and raped and assaulted and basically giving all of his painful memories to Paragon. And it actually sounds like too that he literally actually did technically die a couple of times, which also, like I said, none of it really like makes it okay what Kenneth did, but it's really interesting to think about because of the fact that Paragon basically suffused the body and had a part of him, and it said that basically they were kind of like the same in a lot of ways, like they were the other side of each other's soul. Because Kenneth, and possibly also why he didn't really have a ton of emotions, because he'd kind of given so much of himself away and was almost just like a husk that was still living without what it takes to be fully human. So I thought that was fascinating how deep we got to go in the story. Early on, I'm like, I really want to know what's happening here. I was really, really interested, so I loved getting to know more about that and just hear, man, all the stuff with Paragon, though. It was so sad. And then Paragon dying, even though I figured, obviously, it's Hobbs, so like she could have killed off all those characters. I didn't really think that's what she was going to do. So it was still like a hard scene to read. But the final confrontation, having to see all of the Vestrits and Brashen and Amber and Kenneth and Etta and everybody all interacting together with the Satrap too, of course. The final battle, like I said, with the Jamilan fleet coming, forcing all of these people to work together, I just thought was such a clever way to get all of these people to interact in the way that they did. The Kenneth Althea scene being the one I was talking about, that was just really rough to read, and that just, oh man, like I said, it does play a role, and it's not just done for the shock value. It actually completely makes sense for Kenneth to do that based on his relationship with Wintrow and with Igra, and it's kind of, we see him becoming fully, like becoming Igra, becoming the monster so that he can't ever be the victim again. So I do think, even though there's definitely some rough things, and Kenneth is a terrible person, like I said, I like that we get explanation and we kind of see it, and it's just Hobb has a very interesting way of writing bad people. She doesn't just write, mustache twirly bad. Like, everybody has layers. There's nobody who's like a perfect person or just like a completely like I wouldn't do anything wrong. I mean, even Wintrow, who starts out as that like, I'm the priest and this is all I want, we even show that he was flawed and he changes and he goes through a lot too. But there are really not good, just plain good people. There's people trying to survive, people trying to get by, and I just enjoyed the way that we got so much more into that. Those are kind of some of the things. I don't want to talk a ton, because if I keep talking, I could keep going for hours on this book, but those were some specific things I wanted to talk about. And really, like I said, just I wasn't feeling as much connection as I wanted to these characters after the connection I felt to Fitz with Farseer, and had just how much I enjoyed that until this book. This book really just, everything kind of just fell into place to be the book that I loved, the book with just that something extra that I was wanting, and that I knew Hobb could definitely deliver to me. So just fantastic. This was the strongest book of the trilogy for me. I think they kind of got better and better, because the first book was very good, but there was a ton of setup. The second book was also very good. It was still quite a lot of setup, but a really, really good ending. And then this book just ran with it and went. Hobb doesn't seem to know how to write a bad second book, I've noticed, because the second books are usually somewhere where a lot of people could struggle with the trilogy. Hobb just does a fantastic job. And like I said, this was fantastic, a great end. I cannot wait to continue on with the Tawny Man, the Rain Wilds. I'm actually really excited for the Rain Wilds after events of this one. Just because I've heard those are kind of like the worst out of the realm of the Elderlings, but I'm really curious to see where it's going to go. And then Fitz and Fool too, so I will absolutely continue reading. I love Hobbs' writing. She became one of my favorite authors, partway into the second book of hers that I was reading. She just jumped that high that quickly, so I'm excited to continue. Let me know your thoughts on Ship of Destiny, anything that I said that you agree, disagree with, or what some of your favorite parts or the things you enjoyed the most about it. If you think I'm wrong for still liking Farseer more than this, because I imagine there's a lot of those, let me know as well. Always love to hear the comments, and if you want to continue the discussion even more, check the link in the description for the Wizardly Duo Discord. A lot we can definitely talk about there as well. Always fun to interact and talk everything as well. And then it's Megan's Reading Revelation. I'll link to her channel and Discord as well, since that's where the read along for these are. I don't know if I actually specified that earlier or not. I can't remember now. But that's what I was doing the read along for. So definitely check that out. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it. And of course, if you would like to see more of my content, make sure to subscribe.